Hello, welcome back to Pin My Podfic. This is the reading of Zutopia by Itslivybear, Chapter 11, A Broken Baby Bird. Now, the summary of this chapter is meant to have this next... I guess this is supposed to be an author's note, but they put it as summary. I'm gonna read it anyway. Meant to have this next chapter, but then, got possessed. Wrote it anyway. That was the vibe. Now on to the chapter. Shuichi wasn't sure how the hell he had gotten himself in this situation, to be entirely honest with you. I mean, he could trace it back, go through the events that led up to this moment, but wrapping his head around the fact that it had happened even though he had lived it was really, really hard. He had been at work as his 15-year-old lizard self, helping recovery girl with any patients, mostly reckless hero students, and getting taught. She seemed to like it, and they did do quite a bit of gossiping. It took Shuichi a bit to warm up to the sheer snark that came out of this old woman. But the first time he had cracked a joke, she had chuckled, so he considered it a win. He was also learning a lot, and no one was looking at him funny or having green, scaly skin. Nedzu had asked. Still, it was just as school was ending when the intercom buzzed and Nedzu's voice came on. "Mr. Iguchi, you have a call on line 2. He had no idea who could be calling him or why Nedzu was still calling him Mr., but he picked up the phone on the wall and hit the button for line 2. Hello, this is Iguchi Shuichi. Mr. Iguchi, are you free right now? Victoria, yeah, school just ended and I don't think we have any last-minute patients. He looked at recovery girl and she nodded. So I'm free. Why? Have you ever treated a bird before? No, kid, I'm barely a nurse. I'm not a vet. Okay, different question. Do you know how to treat someone with a bird mutation? Like broken feathers, maybe broken wings? Kid. Damn, guessing that's a no then. You're 10. Why are you swearing? Ka-chan. That makes sense, actually. Iguchi had only met the rest of the gang a few times, but Bakugo was explosive and violent in everything, including his language. Shoji was much more the teenager's style. Shoji and Koda a close second since they were also both pretty quiet. But anyway, can you bring things to treat bruises and cuts? He looks pretty banged up even if we ignore the wings for now. Not that we should let this go. Should I just bring recovery girl? No, he's too tired for her quirk. Okay, but what about just her general medical expertise? Can you put her on the phone for me? He wordlessly held out the phone to his boss, and she ambled over with a raised eyebrow to take it. Yes, Izuku? He didn't hear Izuku's side of the conversation. Of course, the commission. Why? Izuku, have you done something illegal? Put Koda on the phone, sweetie. Oh, then just put it on speakerphone so he can hear. There was a pause before she nodded to herself. Hello, dear. Is what Izuku said true? Izuku will want to send that information to Nedzu. We can get it sorted. You can tell me more when I get there. She hung the phone back up and didn't even bother pretending as she looked directly into the camera. You've completely corrupted that boy, Nedzu. But he's doing good things, so I can't say I mind. We'll be out for the next few hours, and you might want to look at staff openings for young adults with little experience. Without waiting for the rat's reply, Shuichi knew Nedzu heard all. She gathered up her house call bag and gestured him at the door. Have you ever gone on a house visit before, Iguchi? No, ma'am. Are you sure you need me for this? She snorted. Need? I suppose I don't, but it will be a good experience, and you did call you first. Shuichi nodded hesitantly. What was all of that about birds? What was he getting himself into? It had started out pretty tame in all honesty. As soon as Shinso became completely introduced to the group and saw how Izuku would fight anyone and everyone who discriminated against anyone for any reason, the boys who had thrown rocks at the cat had all found themselves expelled the next day, and Hitoshi had never been happier. He was quick to bring in Koda Koji, a tall, shy, rock-looking boy, and his first friend who spoke to animals more than people. But boy, was he fast at typing. Izuku figured that a life of not wanting to talk out loud made for alternative methods of communication. He signed with Shinso and Kachan, surprisingly, and Izuku immediately asked Nedzu if they could add JSL to their lessons. He was delighted to comply, and President Mike helped out, since he was fluent. His texting was almost as fast as talking would be, and sometimes he was faster than Izuku was at mumbling, which was a feat. But anyway, they had been playing games, heroes versus villains, and Izuku had asked if the birds would do recon for him, getting them intel on the villain's location. Koda had been more than happy to agree, and after that, Koda's team always won on the information front. Put Izuku and Shojin and Koda together? Well, it was a done game. Then they started talking about how they had all met, and Shinso had gotten confused. Wait, Midoriya, you live on, the other side of the district. What were you doing over there? Izuku merely smiled. I like to walk around and see if there are people who need help. Also, it helps me practice my people skills. Oh, are you bad at talking to people? Not those kind of people skills. Izuku hadn't elaborated, just smiled, but then Shinso turned to Shoji. What about you? You don't go to our school, so why were you only 5 minutes away? I'm actually in the district next door to you. Plus, I'm pretty fast, especially when Izuku calls for something. Need to make sure he's not doing anything reckless or terrifying. Hitoshi had just stared at Izuku, trying to parse the image of the boy in front of him with the word terrifying, but eventually brushed it off. No way, he was too small and innocent looking, but not a bad bone in this boy's body. Then again, he had gotten those boys expelled. At least, Shinso thought so. Koda signed something and Shinso nodded. Koda likes to use birds to keep an eye on the strays that don't like to move, in case he can't make his rounds. Plus, they warn him when jerks are on the way. Kachan scoffed, leaning back on his hands. Just kill them. Chaco rolled her eyes. Blasty, what did we say about murder? Wait for Zuko to approve. No, we said no murder, Explodey. Unless you can get away with it. Kachan, Izuku chided. Why murder someone when you could just... He made a hand motion and a face everyone stared. When you could just... What? You know. He did it again. Shoji shook his head. Izuku, no one knows what that means. The boy blinked. Oh well, my point still stands. Murder is just too messy. There are much better ways to ruin someone's life. Hitoshi changed his mind. Terrifying definitely fit. So Izuku asked Koda if the birds could keep an eye on a few things for him, watch out for any human strays, like Mr. Iguchi had been, to find anyone who needed help. Of course, they wouldn't help everyone, they would have to be vetted first. Izuku wouldn't just help any random person on the street. He was 10, not stupid. One thing led to another, and suddenly Koji found himself spying on the Hero Commission. "They're kind of shady," Izuku muttered. "I'm 95% sure they're hiding something. Some cover-up about a top hero, probably. Maybe Best Genius actually killed someone and they have to cover it up because he's so popular." Then the birds had come back, distressed, and Koji had to calm them down for 10 whole minutes before he could understand what they were saying. The commission were hurting a bird, they said, hurting them every day, really bad, for a long time. Koji wasn't a fan of humans in general, with the exception of this weird group of 10-year-olds. But he really hated people who were cruel to animals. He texted Izuku about how he was going for some in-person recon and got a thumbs up and a question for location. He wasn't exactly expecting everyone to show up just like tourists. "Hi, Koda, we're here to help." Bakugo had, of course, rolled his eyes and scoffed, saying he was only there to keep an eye on Izuku. But Koji knew that the whole group was very easily swept up in Izuku and his schemes. No one else could forgive animal cruelty either. The birds flew down at his call and he got a basic general location of the window they were looking through to see this injured bird. They led the group of 6 10-year-olds to that side of the Hero Commission building. Izuku and Shoji, best at climbing on stealth, were helped above and beside the building by Chako, making them lightweight, and Shoji stretched out his limbs, forming an eye on the top end to peek in the window that they could only see because of their height. Koji watched him stiffen, and Izuku tugged on the boy, wanting to look as well, no doubt to get a good layout of the area so he could form a plan. Koji watched the green boy's smile freeze on his face, and he became very, very still. Shoji lowered him again, and Chako gently let them float down. Izuku was still smiling, but everyone knew it wasn't a happy one. "Okay, I have a plan." Koji rubbed his hands together nervously and sighed. How was the bird? Izuku's empty gaze turned to him, smile never leaving his face. "Yeah, it's someone with a bird mutation. From the brief bit I saw, they are training him to the point of death. I recognize some psychological tactics that lead me to believe he's being manipulated, and I don't have much knowledge of birds, but something tells me they were suppressing some of his traits." "Izuku, you were looking in the window for 2 seconds. And that was all I needed." Hitoshi clenched and unclenched his hands. "So, what are we going to do?" Izuku hummed, smile seeming a bit more real and a bit more predatory. "I'm so glad you asked." Sanji Cho really did not like her job, in all honesty. Running the front desk at the Hero Commission was like getting run over by a car 3 times a day, and just after you get up, someone throws a rock at your head. At least the pay was good. Today was a day where she was getting run over 4 times. Honestly, the amount of people who called about a villain attack was ridiculous. They had a local hero agencies. They were the ones to be called. The only thing to do in those cases was to ask them their location, then give them the number of the nearest agency. Really, they were the commission, not the heroes. Honestly, the name probably threw people off. They should rebrand, just so Cho didn't have to deal with it. When she got a call from a panicked girl, explosions in the background with a terrible cackle and some scattered distant screams, She could already feel the headache coming on. Miss, I'm going to need you to calm down and tell me your location. Do you know the closest hero agency? The girl, or woman, was hysterical. Cho was getting nothing out of her anytime soon. Well, past 2, using government resources to trace the call and get the location that way. As she was running the software, someone came up to this desk and showed her their badge. As was standard, she didn't even spare them more than a glance. Tall, plastic card, check. Before buzzing them in, she did not have time to deal with people coming back late from their lunch breaks. She had to find this phone call before people died and the commission was blamed. Tracing. The program put out an error and she cursed internally. Miss, I really need you to give me something to work with or I can't get the heroes to your location. The person just kept blubbering. Something about a park, which was useful except for the fact that there were parks everywhere. And the explosion villain in the background said something about cheeks hurrying it up, hamming it up. Cho wasn't sure, sounded angry regardless. This was the worst job. She should probably quit. Shoji and Izuku walked in without a hitch. Shoji using his height to pose as a worker while the lady in the front desk was occupied with Chako and Kachan's phone call. Hitoshi and the birds were helping with the screens. And Izuku using his lack of height to just duck under the view from the desk. Was it illegal to mislead someone like this? Yeah, probably, but Izuku's phone was pretty much untraceable, and they were torturing a teenager, so, justified. I'm probably not going to have consequences. He had already mentally mapped the general direction of where they had seen the red-winged boy, and Shoji was more than happy to make sure no one caught them, keeping extra eyes and ears out at all times. They had both gotten pretty quiet-footed, so no problems here. Slow and steady wonder race. They just had to get the bird boy, and get out without getting caught. Easy. Even if they were 10. Shoji stopped him before they hit a corner. A mouth formed right next to Izuku's ear. I think I found him. No one else around, but his breathing is bad. It's bad. Izuku nodded and peeked around the corner at his friend. There was one door at the end of the hall, a few feet away. It had a deadbolt on it. Izuku's blood boiled at the thought. First they torture him, then they lock him up, not even tending to his wounds. Were they trying to kill him? Izuku didn't even care that the commission was technically the backbone of today's society. He was tattling to Nedzu and burning it all to the ground. Nedzu would probably enjoy it as much as he would, honestly. He gently slid the deadbolt away. Shoji watching the hallways to ensure no one was coming to check on them, and the door creaked open. They both tensed, but no alarms went off, so Izuku opened it the rest of the way. The bird boy murmured something and tried to get up, stumbling as he did so, before he stood tall at attention, even though he was wobbling and bleeding from multiple cuts. Izuku gasped. His red feathers were bent in places, and one wing was hanging limp. He hurried over to the older boy and gently grabbed his arms, trying to steady him. Gigi, I need you. He can't walk. Shoji was in the room in an instant, carefully lifting the barely taller boy and arranging him in his arms, letting the limp wing hang on the outside where it briefly dragged on the floor. Izuku, if I'm holding him, my senses are dulled. He nodded. That's fine. We just have to be fast. He untucked Shoji's phone from his back pocket and opened it up to text the distraction team. On our way out, wrap it up and keep secretary distracted. He got a thumbs back and slipped the phone back where he found it. Honestly, a feat since they were speed walking, and Shoji had much longer legs than Izuku. Walking back out the special employee-only doors they had come in through, honestly, the fact that they had managed to avoid everyone was incredible. It revealed poor, haggard secretary frantically trying to calm Ochako down, who had resorted to just screaming with explosions and expletives in the background, just so she could get a location. She had no doubt put out an alert for all heroes on patrol to get on the lookout for an explosion villain, not that they would find one. The rest of the group was back at Shoji's house, the closest one, and were no doubt in the backyard playing heroes versus villains, so Shoji's older sister wouldn't get worried. They slipped out the door, and Kota rushed them in from the alley he had been hiding in with the birds. He immediately fussed over the bird boy, still upset at the cruelty, and typed something out before shoving the phone at Izuku. The birds say he's dying. He needs medical help, and fast. Izuku nodded and fished Shoji's phone back out, dialing a number he had long since memorized. It rang once. Hi, Nedzu. Izuku, are you the cause of this explosion villain alert I'm getting? Yep. Anyways, is Mr. Iguchi still in the building? He is indeed. Would you like me to direct your call? Yes, please. Oh, and there isn't actually a villain, but I will be calling you back later when I have all the facts, and then we'll have a fun project. Oh, how lovely. I look forward to it. Hold a moment, my friend. Gentle music played over the phone while they continued to walk, before Shuichi picked up the phone. Hello, this is Iguchi Shuichi. Mr. Iguchi, are you free right now? Recovery Girl and Shuichi met them at Shoji's house, his older sister letting them in immediately after seeing the badly injured bird boy being brought in by her brother, recognizing the medic bag the medic heroine carried, if not the heroine herself. The Recovery Girl tisked at the passed-out boy, looking extremely annoyed and worried. And you found this boy. Where? Izuku's eyes were dark. The commission, he said flatly. What on earth could they have been doing to him to get it this bad? She trailed off with a grumble, waving Shuichi over. Boy, treat his cuts while I look at this wing. The kids were all gathered, shell-shocked and blank-faced, watching the examination and careful bandaging of the older boy, slightly older than Shuichi, even. At one point, he stirred and tried to get up in his delirious state, but Recovery Girl was having none of it, pushing him back down. When he tried to get up again, she gave him a light peck, healing the worst of the bruises around his face and neck, and knocking him right out. When her apprentice was done, she had already set and bound the wing, sitting back to give the boy a critical eye even as he was dead to the world. Kota spoke up, barely a whisper. Is he going to live? She sighed and nodded. Yes, I have some concerns, but other than his injuries, he is in peak health. I put his age at somewhere around 17 or 18, and he's nothing but muscle, lean and mean, as the kids would say. Given another 6 hours, he would likely be dead, but something tells me he is a little too stubborn for that. She shook her head and packed up her bags. Observe him for the next 24 hours. If he wakes up, see what information you can get out of him. I already know Nedzu will want to take this one. She cast a critical eye at Izuku. You are going to tell him, I gather? I already did, Baba. She snorted. Not your grandma brat, but good. If anyone has been looking for a way to tear into the commission, it's the rat. He nodded and looked back at the fitfully sleeping bird boy. After the two healers had left, he glanced up at Shoji's sister. Suno, can we sleep over? She snorted. Make yourself at home, kiddos, as long as your parents approve. If you can't stay, Nedzu and I can watch him. They quickly all whipped out their phones, each one getting approval from their parents. A lot of them were just happy their kids finally had friends, and most of the parents had met the other kids. Shoji dragged out the spare futons and arranged them around the living room, since the bird boy, who they still didn't know the name of, was taking up the couch. Shoji's older sister nodded at the kids that piled around her living room and meandered off to the kitchen. I'm going to keep the kettle on. Something tells me this is going to be a long night. Hitoshi sighed and curled up in the chair. I have insomnia, so I'm not sleeping anyway. I'll take the first shift. Kacha nodded sharply. If the bird wakes up, I'll get at least one other person up. Chako raised her fist. I'm second shift. Izuku pouted. Then I'll be third. Koda raised up 4 fingers with a nod. Shoji said, I'm probably gonna be up all night, but if I do sleep, I'll go 5th. Kachan huffed. I guess I'm last shift. Turns out they didn't need shifts because it wasn't an hour later that a thump woke them all up, and then them scrambling up from the floor to hear the whimpering of the boy. Izuku peered down at him, carefully sitting him up to get him off his wing. Hey, it's okay, you're safe. Just sit up slowly, that's it. Tsuno brought a glass of water from the kitchen, setting it on the coffee table the boy had narrowly avoided. And at the sound of it connecting with glass, his eyes shot open and locked onto it. Apparently, taking it in sufficiently, Golden Eyes went from person to person, getting wider with each one until he scrambled back, climbing up the couch until he was perched on the back of it. Izuku held up his hands non-threateningly. Hey, it's okay. You're safe. You're not there. And where is here? His voice was soft and scratchy, and his eyes briefly flickered to the glass of water before locking back onto Izuku. Nobody moved. We're in my friend Shoji's house, he gestured to the tall and still boy, where we brought you to treat your wounds. You were really hurt, Mr. His pupils thinned a little. Hawks. Izuku frowned to himself. That wasn't a name. It was a title, a moniker. Okay, Hawks, would you like to drink this water? I can't imagine holding that position is helping your wing. And Baba Chiyo would kill me if I let you break it again. The boy flinched and looked at his bound wing before the feathers smoothed out from their fluffed-up position. His hands relaxed minutely, sharp fingernails, talons really, leaving behind puncture wounds in the couch. He turned to his other wing and grasped one of the bent feathers before tugging it out. Izuku heard Koda suck in a breath, but the feather came out as easily as breathing. He took the feather between his hands and fiddled with it until it was straightened out again, then tucked it back into place. He did this for a few of the more obvious ones, then just shook out the wing gently, and the rest righted themselves with a buzz. It's not broken. He fingered the bandages, binding it closed, and feathers began to slip out, floating in the air until the bandages fell away from lack of support. It seemed like all the straight feathers had flown out, leaving behind only the broken ones, which he set to straightening out just like before. He didn't flinch once, even though the feathers were partially streaked with blood from where they had bent and broken. The more mangled of the feathers got set aside, not rejoining the wing when the feathers slipped back into place. But when he was done, his wings looked fine. You couldn't see much of the blood on the red color of the wings in the darkness of the night besides. But his hands, you could see it in his hands. Throughout the entire ordeal, almost ritual, the 6 kids and 1 adult just watched. None of them quite sure what to make of this boy, who was almost a man. If not for the blood on his hands and the bandage cuts and bruises, he would look like he was in perfect health. His golden eyes looked back to Izuku, not looking at any of the others. Can I go back now? They all flinched. Chako was the first one to speak. sputtering even as sharp eyes turned to her. Why would you want to go back? They were hurting you. He shook his head lightly. They were training me. I would like to go back, please. Kachan raised an eyebrow. Training you for what? High pain tolerance? To be a hero. That would explain the name. Hawks. I shot back to him. That wasn't training. You could have died if we didn't get you out of there. They wouldn't let that happen unless I really messed up. They all exchanged glances. This was not a good start. Hitoshi stood up and felt the attention immediately on him, but ignored it to approach the tense boy, as soon as he noticed the talons curling back onto the couch. Man, they would have to get Suno a new couch after this, wouldn't they? He stopped. The boy relaxed minutely. Training isn't supposed to be like that, even for heroes. Lavender eyes met golden. What's your name? Hawks. No, your name. Hawks. Your civilian name. Izuku frowned. Do you remember? The 7 or 18-year-old frowned for a moment. It wasn't important. Suno spoke up next. Kid, it's your name. How is it not important? Shoji folded his many arms and looked at Izuku. Call Nedzu now. Oh. Izuku smiled, but there was no joy behind it. Calling Nedzu now. And that was it for this chapter of Zutopia, A Broken Baby Bird, by Itslivybear. Fuck, I honestly forgot what voice I gave Chiyo, if I already gave her one, and I forgot which voice I gave, so it's gonna be everything mixed up. But I'm just going off the vibe anyways at this point. And because Hawks, yes, he is a character in this, but he isn't there's just this is what the plot currently about him, but later on he's not gonna be as important, but he will be of importance later on, if you know. But yeah, this is it for this chapter, and I'm trying my best to record this while my family isn't home. So hydrate or die straight, and have a good whatever time of the day it is.